again, friends, I'm Patty, the girl with blue energy. I also have bipolar and ADHD and make videos about mental health. So today's video is part 2 of a series I've made on how to stop talking too much. If you struggle with talking too much, I made a previous video that gets into the science of why we talk so much that you really should watch before you watch this one. But if you want to hear the tips first, I'm going to get into that next. So today I'm discussing 12 actually effective tips on how to stop talking so much. So these tips were created for people who have bipolar or ADHD, but I think they may be useful to anyone who struggles with talking too much. So the first few tips have to do with calming your mind, because you really can't control your talking if you're hypomanic or in a manic state or your ADHD is out of control. So the first step to getting better control over how much you talk is to be in a good place mentally. Tip number 1. Cut down on the stimulants. If you have bipolar or ADHD, stimulants will make all of your symptoms worse. If you have bipolar, it can trigger a manic episode or make manic symptoms worse. And you may have heard that caffeine is good for people with ADHD, that we need the stimulants, that it helps us calm down. But when it comes to caffeine, this is not true. Caffeine generally makes ADHD symptoms worse. In addition to that, cannabis is a stimulus. A lot of people think cannabis helps to calm you down, smoke some weed and calm down and chill out. But cannabis is actually a stimulant, and it can make manic symptoms worse. And even though it may not be as risky for people with ADHD to use cannabis, it typically doesn't calm them down and may make their ADHD symptoms worse. So if you want to quit talking so much, the first thing you need to do is cut down on overstimulation, because that is going to stimulate the part of your brain that wants to talk a lot. Tip number 2 is to improve your sleep routine. I mention this in nearly every video, and that is because sleep is extremely important when you have bipolar disorder. When we don't get enough sleep, it can trigger hypomanic symptoms, and it also may lead us to consume more caffeine, which is a stimulant, which can make manic symptoms worse. All of these things are just not helpful if you're trying to cut down on how much you talk. Tip number 3, practice meditation. I have been practicing meditation for a very long time, and it is one of my most effective tools for managing my bipolar disorder. But it really helps when you're trying to talk less, because it allows you to process your emotions, and it helps you to learn how to sit in silence, something that a lot of us with bipolar and ADHD struggle with. Tip number 4, exercise regularly. Much like rumination, talking too much can be a cognitive process that we get stuck in. We just can't stop doing it. And exercise can help break that up. Plus, exercise lifts our mood in general and helps us to feel better, where we may be able to control the talking a little bit better and have an outlet for whatever it is that we need to talk about. Tip number 5, stimulate the left hemisphere of your brain. As I mentioned in the science of why we talk so much, people who overtalk or have bipolar and ADHD tend to use the right hemisphere of their prefrontal cortex more than their left. So activities that engage the left hemisphere of your prefrontal cortex will help stimulate and get that side of your brain working more. And this can indirectly help us to calm down. And I have found this tip to be really helpful. If you've ever watched friends that are introverts do crossword puzzles, word searches, play solitary on their computer or play games on their phone, this is all engaging the left side of their prefrontal cortex. And I always thought this was stupid, like you're wasting your time doing this. Shouldn't you be doing something? Like, talking too much. So I have started doing this regularly, and I found that it helps calm me down, change my focus, and get me to use another part of my brain instead of talking so much. Tip number 6, get off social media. This is something I started doing many months ago when I started my first 90-day transformation and started this channel. Getting off social media will help you to stop talking so much. And you may be saying, what does social media have to do with talking so much? Well, social media triggers a release of dopamine, the pleasure chemical. This is the chemical that makes us feel good when we achieve goals, when we eat something we like, and when we post on social media. And as people with bipolar disorder, we love dopamine. In fact, there's science from researchers that suggests that bipolar is caused by dopamine dysregulation in our brain. So by reducing that need for dopamine releases and that urge to talk, whether online on social media or in real life, we can calm down the dopamine in our brain so we don't crave talking so much. And I have found this tip useful for improving my productivity and for helping me not to talk so much. Tip number 7, get comfortable with silence. For those of us who talk a lot, I can almost guarantee that you are uncomfortable with silence. If it's quiet in a room and the person next to you is not talking, you will say something and start talking because that silence just drives you crazy. If you're sitting in a room, you may turn on the TV set just to have some noise. This is part of why we talk so much, that stimulation, us needing something to fill that space. Get comfortable with empty spaces and learn to sit with silence. So if you're home alone and you normally turn the TV set on just so you're not sitting in silence, practice just sitting in your home in silence with no music, no TV, nothing to stimulate you, just silence. I have found this tip to be incredibly useful. And now when I'm in places where I normally would listen to music or talk, I sit in silence. Tip number 8, go on a not talking diet. Now, if you've ever gone on a diet before, what usually happens within the first day or sometimes the first few hours? You go to the cupboard and you open the door, and you go to the refrigerator and you open the door, and then you think, oh gosh, I am opening the refrigerator door. I better close that. I don't need anything to eat, right? We practice that mindfully. We're not really hungry. We just want something to eat, to fill space, to fill a void. This is also true with talking. So go on a not talking diet. And when you catch yourself opening your mouth, just like closing the refrigerator door because you consciously remind yourself, no, I'm not actually hungry, close your mouth. If you catch yourself talking, just consciously remind yourself to close your mouth. Tip number 9, use timers and affirmations. This is what I did when I first started working on controlling how much I talk. I would set an alarm on my phone for a half an hour interval. So when I was in a public or social setting, I'd set the alarm, and the alarm would have a label on it that said, you are silent, or you are powerful, or you are self-controlled. And I would write different affirmations that would go off, and my alarm would sound and remind me to stick to my not talking diet and remind me that I was in control of my talking. And the affirmations were positive reinforcement. Now, during these times when I was trying to practice my not talking, sometimes it was a real struggle, especially when I was standing next to someone and I wanted to talk and they weren't talking. So what I would do is I would chant my affirmations in my head. You are powerful. You are quiet. You are in control. You are a goddess. Just different words to keep me focused and put my mind on something else while I practiced those intervals of not talking. And This has honestly helped me a lot, and I do this still regularly to keep me on track with my goal of talking less. Tip number 10, keep a digital journal. I have mentioned journaling in a number of my videos. So I keep a digital journal because, hey, you can't pull out a journal when you're going places. You sometimes don't have access to it. By keeping a digital journal on your phone, anytime you need a place to talk, you have a safe outlet for it. So sometimes I can't really write a whole lot when I'm busy in social settings, but I can use it. Like when I go to the bathroom, I might jot a note to myself, or I can use it when I get a little alone time. And this helps me to kind of write down my feelings and track my progress and give me a safe place to talk. So I keep a digital journal and I use it regularly, and it has been really helpful for me in trying to quit talking so much. Tip number 11, practice mindful communication. So mindfulness is when you are present in the moment and fully aware of your emotions as they take place. So when you practice mindful communication, that means that you're paying attention to how you feel in the moment. So for me, when I do this, what I will do is I will literally pause in my brain when I go to say something, or before I say something, or sometimes mid-sentence, and say, why am I sharing this? Why do I feel the need to share this? So I'm thinking about my why. And I will say, is this important? Or does anybody care? Or can it wait? So sometimes I will literally say in my own mind, Patty, nobody flipping cares. Like when I want to go on endlessly about something that's important to me, but not important to the other person. And that helps me to be a better talker. So I'm not just bombarding people with things I want to blab about, and consciously thinking in the moment about what I'm saying and why I'm saying it. Now, I don't do this perfectly, but it's something I try to practice regularly, and the more I do it, the better I get at it. Tip number 12, improve your listening skills. Now, I probably could have put this at the beginning, because this is a really important piece to improving how much you talk and cutting back on talking so much. When you become a better listener, you talk less because you're listening more. And one of the things I've become aware of since I started practicing mindful communication is how much I don't think about the other person's feelings. As over-talkers, we tend to trade talking for listening. So we love talking to other over-talkers. So like I might call my over-talking friend just so I can yap about whatever I need to yap about. And in exchange, I will listen to her yap about whatever she needs to yap about without there being a back and forth exchange of active listening. Because as talkers and over-talkers, we don't care that much about whether you're even listening to us. We just need to get our talk on. However, people aren't like that. Other people like to be listened to and heard, not just to talk to get things out. They want to be listened to. They don't want to hear yeah, and okay. They want to be listened to. So the more you practice active listening, the better of a communicator that you are, and it actually helps you to talk less. And the nice thing about improving your listening skills is there are tons of books and information on how to be a better listener. There aren't so many books or information and resources on how to stop talking so much, but you can definitely find books and videos and information on how to communicate better, how to be a better listener. So those are my tips on how to stop talking so much. If you got anything out of my video, if you like my content, I'd really appreciate it if you would hit the like button on this video. I'm trying to get this one into the algorithm, and likes and comments would help a lot. Also, subscribe to my channel. I'm really trying to create a good resource, information and support for people with bipolar and ADHD. I love your feedback and your comments, so let me know what you think, and I will have some more videos coming up really soon.